Zoe Flowers here, back with another reading. So, it is Women's History Month. It is March 2nd. And so, this is our card of the day. We have Miss Ida B. Wells showing up. So, I did the unboxing of the R Tarot deck last night. So, please check that out if you haven't seen it yet. All right. So I'm gonna read. It's pretty lengthy, so I am gonna read it because y'all want to know about these folks or what? Okay. So in this particular deck, so this is the Justice card. So this also represents Libra. So I feel like this is me showing up in my own reading. I'm never mad when that happens, right? I also pulled the same card from the Hoodoo Tarot this morning, the Justice card. So today is all about justice, the question of justice. So Ida B. Wells. So this book tells you about the person's life and then obviously what the message is. Why the card has shown up. Excuse me. So on May 4th, 1883, Ida B. Wells traveled from Woodstock to Memphis, Tennessee on the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. The African American schoolteacher had purchased a ticket to sit in the first class ladies' car and was dressed accordingly. As she tells in her biography, a conductor approached, ordered her to move to the smoking car. Ida basically said, I'm not a smoker. I'm not going to the smoking car. I'm a lady. So I want to stay in the ladies' car. The conductor went to grab her and she did what? She bit him, right? Of course, that did not go over well. She was thrown off the train. So when she got back to Memphis, she wrote about this experience for an 1884 issue of The Living Way, which was a black church weekly newspaper. And that article really launched her career as a writer. And so for the next 5 years, she wrote about economic instability for black people. She wrote about educational inequality and just the piss poor standards of the Memphis school system. In 1889, she co-founded the Free Speech and Headlight newspaper. And so then she really started to also talk about the poor conditions in black Memphis schools, which, you guessed it, she was fired. Because you can't be a teacher talking about how trash the school system is, apparently, in 1889 as a black woman. So she was let go. So, but she was not, she was unfazed by that. She was just like, okay, well, I'm just going to go on to the next thing, right? One monkey don't stop no show. Is that an appropriate statement? I don't know. Anyway, so she just devoted herself to journalism full time. So in 1892, in March 1892, her friend Thomas Moss, and he owned the People's Grocery Store, himself and two other men were lynched. So what had happened was a black boy and a white boy, young children, were having a fight, and the father of the white boy child, um, started assaulting the black child. And so Thomas Moss saw this white man, abusing this black child, and he came out and he protected him, of course, and two other people as well. And they were all arrested, thrown in jail, taken in the middle of the night, and lynched, which was not uncommon. So Ida B. Wells was so distraught. She was so upset about what happened that she started to write about lynching. And one of the things she found was that, I'll read it. So, outraged over the death of her friend, Ida decided to investigate lynching. It was commonly believed by the public that black men who were executed by lynch mobs were guilty of a crime, even if they hadn't been tried. And most of the time, they were accused of raping white women. Upon researching multiple cases, Ida concluded that white Southerners used the accusations to disguise their true motivation, which was to eliminate competition. Ida repeatedly found that black men who were lynched were those who had gained economic success, engaged and had engaged in consensual relationships with white women, or both. So it's like, okay, you ain't finna own land, be economically sustainable, and you finna date white women too. No, we finna lynch you. Like, that's not finna really go down. Okay. So what happened was, Ida later summarized white Southern attitudes in her 1892 pamphlet, Southern Horrors: Lynch Laws in All Its Phases. So this is super interesting. This quote she has here, it says, "The Negroes are getting too independent, they say. We must teach them a lesson." So here's another sidebar. So when you think about the Salem witch trials, what we found, those of us who research things, sorry, I can't help myself. I apologize. What we found is that a lot of the women who were executed in Salem and beyond, because a lot of the women actually didn't even get killed in Salem. They got killed somewhere else, but that's a whole other story. Many of the women around this country who were accused of witchcraft were actually either midwives, they were, herbalists, they were also, I'm hearing like activists. That's not really the right word, but, they weren't like going with the status quo. They were women who were very independent and things like that. And so much in the same way that white Southerners were lynching black people when they got too big for their britches, that also was a lot of the case in the witch trials that swept across this country. Ida's publication of her findings caused immense displeasure among the white citizens of Memphis. Go figure. She received numerous threats on her life and began to carry a pistol with her. Nonetheless, she refused to be intimidated in silence. She said one had better die fighting against injustice rather than die like a dog or a rat in a trap. Ida left town in the late weeks of 1892. When she returned, you guessed it, they had burned her office down to the ground. So Ida was like, you know what, that's it. Like, I'm done with this nonsense. So she moved to New York and she published Southern Horrors in 1892 and The Red Record in 1895. And so both of which examined and exposed many lynching cases. From 1880 to 1930, murders perpetrated by lynch mobs occurred in peak numbers. Ida's pamphlet exposed white Southerners' proclamations that they were defending innocent women and children as a ruse, putting forth that lynching purpose was to punish black people for daring to be visible, valuable participants in their own communities. So, Ida spoke all around the world. She was lauded in Britain. They loved her in Britain. And so she spoke all around there. She became very famous, the most famous, really, woman talking about anti-lynching of her time. Now, here's the other T. So she also was a staunch supporter of women's rights to vote. But here's the thing. She felt like, just like I say, there's no single issue. So she felt like we need to be working on anti-lynching, but we also need to be working for the suffragist movement. So what happened was, of course, we know that a lot of the suffragists, right, they wanted voting rights for white women. They wasn't really like caring whether or not black women had the right to vote. They felt like, yeah. And then you had the anti-lynching folks who felt like black women shouldn't be concerned with the right to vote either, right? So just in the same ways that we have so much now, where we have the Black Lives Matter movement, where we are like, yes, police brutality, really horrible. Can we stop that? And then at the same time, like for me, like I'm like, yes, I don't want police brutality, but guess what? I also don't want black women to be killed by black men either. I don't want that brutality either. And guess what? I also don't want gay and trans people to be killed either. We all had to come together and work on these issues together. But just like today, because the more things change, the more. Wow, this is really turning into a rant. I'm sorry. I apologize. I can't help myself. But anyway, just like today, right? You find yourself, people wanting you to pick one or the other. But just like Ida said, if we're really going to have justice, we got to work for all people at the same damn time. Okay. So what happened to Ida, because she was a suffragist, but the suffragist was like racist at the same time, and she was anti-lynching, but the black community was misogynistic or misogynoiristic at the same time. She found herself on the outs with both of them. I can relate. So, if the justice card shows up, right, it is telling us that there is a potential for balance and restoration, right? And there are some questions here which I really like. So it says there is a choice coming and your principles will guide your decision. Whose admirable actions to shift unfair balances of power can you learn from? What situations in your life are pushing you to speak up for what's right? And how do you personally define justice? So I think throughout my rant, you have gotten my definition of justice. I definitely do not believe in single issue causes. I definitely believe we need to come together, and work on those things at the same time. So that is the message of Ida B. Wells. This is Zoe Flowers giving you my chaotic, low-key rant on the second day of Black History Month is over. Oh my God. On the second day of Women's History Month. Black History Month is not over. Correction, every day is Black History Month. All right, y'all. That's it. You've been through enough with me. I'm out.